The rain came down in thin silver lines over the edge of Colony 9, tapping softly against metal roofs and glowing street panels. Most people were already inside, doors sealed, lights dimmed. Frontier colonies learned early that nights were for staying quiet. Elias Ward was not expecting visitors. He stood in his small kitchen, stirring a pot of grain stew that smelled warm and plain. It was the kind of food that kept a person alive and reminded them of home, even if home was far away. Elias lived alone. He worked maintenance for the colony's outer sensor towers. Long hours, little conversation. He liked it that way. The knock came suddenly. It was soft, almost lost under the sound of rain, but Elias froze. Nobody knocked this late. The colony used comms for everything. Knocking meant trouble, or fear, or someone who did not understand how things worked. He turned off the heat and moved slowly to the door. The security panel showed no alerts, no warnings, just darkness and rain. Another knock followed. "Careful, patient." Elias released a breath and opened the door. A small figure stood on the threshold. At first, he thought it was a child in a costume. The figure was short, thin, wrapped in a loose fabric cloak that clung wetly from the rain. Then the figure looked up, and Elias knew it was not human. Large eyes reflected the porch light, dark and glossy. The skin was a soft gray-blue, smooth, with faint lines that moved when the child blinked. Small hands clutched the edge of the cloak. They stared at each other in silence. Elias's mind raced through training videos and warnings. Do not interact with unregistered alien species. Do not offer food. Do not invite inside. Call colony security. The child swayed slightly. It made a small sound, not quite a word. The translator node near Elias's ear hummed, trying to lock on. "Hungry," the device finally said. Uncertain. That was all. Elias looked down at the child. No weapons, no devices, no sign of threat. Just rain dripping from the cloak and eyes that did not blink enough. He felt something tighten in his chest. "You're alone?" he asked, knowing the translator might not work both ways. The child tilted its head. It did not answer, but it did not step back either. Behind Elias, the smell of stew drifted out into the rain. He made a choice that took less than a second and would matter for the rest of his life. "Come in," he said softly, stepping aside. The child hesitated, then crossed the threshold. The door slid shut behind them, sealing out the rain. Inside, the light was warm and low. The child looked around slowly, eyes moving over the walls, the table, the cooking pot. Everything seemed new. Interesting. Elias pulled a towel from a hook and crouched down, keeping his movements slow. He gently offered it. The child took it, copying him, pressing it awkwardly against its head and shoulders. "You're safe," Elias said, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to reassure. He led the child to the small table and brought a bowl of stew, letting it cool first. He set it down and stepped back. The child leaned over the bowl. It sniffed. Its eyes widened slightly. It picked up the spoon, held it the wrong way, then watched Elias. When he demonstrated, the child copied him again. The first bite changed everything. The child made a quiet sound, something between surprise and relief. It ate faster after that, careful but clearly very hungry. Elias watched, heart pounding, half expecting alarms to go off at any second. Nothing happened. Minutes passed. The bowl emptied. The child placed the spoon down neatly and looked at Elias. It touched its chest, then pointed at the bowl. "Thank," the translator said, rough and imperfect. Elias smiled despite himself. "You're welcome." The child slid off the chair. It hesitated, then reached out and lightly touched Elias's hand. The contact was warm. Then, without another word, the child turned and walked back to the door. "Wait," Elias said, but the child was already gone, slipping into the rain like it had never been there. Elias stood alone in the quiet kitchen, heart still racing. He locked the door and leaned against it, staring at nothing. "I've lost my mind," he muttered. He had barely taken 3 steps away from the door when the colony's external sensors chimed. Not an alarm. A presence. Alert. Elias moved to the console by the window. His breath caught. Outside, the street was no longer empty. Figures stood in the rain, tall and still, their forms outlined by soft, shifting light. Hovering drones floated behind them, silent and watching. At the center stood one figure larger than the rest, and beside her, partially hidden by her cloak, was the child. Elias's pulse thundered in his ears. The knock came again, firmer this time. He opened the door slowly. The air outside felt different, charged. The tall alien woman looked down at him. Her presence was overwhelming, not because of threat, but because of certainty. She knew exactly why she was there. Her eyes were the same as the child's, but deeper, older. Her posture was calm, controlled, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with human ideas and everything to do with confidence and power.
The translator activated instantly.
"You fed my cub," the device said, voice smooth and clear. Elias swallowed. She was hungry. A pause followed. Long.
"Heavy. That is not an answer humans usually give," the woman replied.
The child stepped forward slightly, pressing closer to her side.
"I didn't know," Elias said honestly.
"I just couldn't leave her out there." The woman studied him. Around them, the watching figures remained silent. "You broke no law," she said. "You followed instinct." Elias wasn't sure that was better. "What happens now?" he asked. The woman's gaze shifted briefly to the inside of his home, to the empty bowl on the table. "Now," she said, "others will hear of this." Elias felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain.
"I didn't want anything," he said quickly. "No reward."
"No trouble. I just fed a kid." At that, the woman did something unexpected. She smiled. It was small, controlled, but real. "That," she said, "is exactly the problem." She gestured, and the hovering observers slowly withdrew, fading back into the rain. The street grew quiet again. The woman bowed her head slightly. Not submission. Recognition. "My cub will remember this," she said. "So will I." The child looked up at Elias one last time and gave a small, awkward wave, copying something it had seen earlier through the window. Then they turned and were gone, vanishing into the night. Elias closed the door and stood there for a long time, listening to the rain. He did not know it yet, but far beyond Colony 9, messages were already spreading. Humans, it seemed, did not need orders to do the right thing, and the galaxy was beginning to pay attention. The next morning, Colony 9 did not feel the same. Elias Ward noticed it the moment he stepped outside. The air was calm, the sky clear, but something invisible pressed down on the settlement. People moved slower. Conversations stopped when he passed. Doors slid shut a little faster than usual. He told himself he was imagining it. He went through his normal routine. Breakfast, work jacket, tool kit. He tried not to think about the night before, about the alien child, the woman's eyes, the way the street had filled with silent watchers. But the memory followed him like a shadow. As he walked toward the transit platform, his wrist unit chimed. "Elias Ward," a calm voice said. "Please report to Administrative Hall before your scheduled shift." He stopped walking. That had never happened before. Administrative Hall sat at the center of the colony, a wide, low building with walls designed more for meetings than defense. Elias had only been inside once, years ago, to sign housing papers. He did not like it. When he entered, 2 security officers nodded at him. They did not look angry. They looked careful. A woman from colony administration greeted him and led him into a quiet room. A table stood in the center. A single chair waited on one side.
"You're not in trouble," she said quickly, as if reading his face.
Whoa, we just need to talk. Elias sat. A screen on the wall flickered to life. Symbols moved across it, alien and human systems layered together.
You had contact last night, the woman said. The most
It was not a question. Yes, Elias replied. With a juvenile of a non-registered species, yes. And you provided food? Yes. The woman exhaled slowly. Do you know how many interstellar protocols that touches? Elias looked down at his hands. She was hungry. The woman paused. Her expression shifted just slightly. That's what you told the visitor, she said. Visitor? Elias asked. She tapped the console. The screen changed, showing an image from an overhead sensor. Tall figures. Hovering observers. The woman and her child. They were not scouting. They were observing. Carefully.
Observing what? Elias asked. The administrator hesitated.
Us. Elias leaned back, heart beating faster.
Because I fed a kid? Because you fed a cub, the woman corrected gently.
In their culture, that is not a small thing, she explained as best she could. The species had been known to the wider galaxy for centuries. Powerful. Influential. Not aggressive, but deeply ritual-driven. They did not trust easily. They tested others in subtle ways. They sent the child alone, she said. Do a human settlement. That alone is rare. Elias felt a cold weight settle in his chest. You were not chosen, she continued. Not officially. The cub simply knocked on the nearest door. So I passed a test by accident, Elias said. Her mouth tightened. Yes. What happens now? That depends, she said, on them.
Elias left the hall an hour later with more questions than answers.
He was told to take the day off. That alone made him uneasy. As he walked home, he noticed the drones. They were high above the colony, barely visible against the sky, but he could feel them watching.
Not threatening. Studying.
At home, Elias sat at his table, staring at the empty bowl from the night before. He washed it, dried it, and placed it back in the cupboard like nothing had happened. He almost believed that. The knock came in the afternoon this time. He opened the door slowly. The alien woman stood there again, alone. No observers, no hovering lights. Just her, tall and composed, her cloak dry despite the distance she must have traveled. You may invite me in, she said, through the translator.
Elias stepped aside without thinking. Come in! She entered and looked around with calm interest, her eyes taking in every detail.
She did not touch anything. She did not sit until Elias offered a chair. My cub sleeps, she said. The food you gave her eased more than hunger. Elias nodded, unsure what to say. My name, she continued, has no clean translation. You may call me Ceres.
Elias,
he replied. She studied him for a long moment.
You do not fear me. I do, Elias said honestly, but not enough to be rude. Cirrus made a soft sound that might have been amusement.
our kind has met many species, she said. Most act from calculation.
Some act from instinct. Very few act from care without expectation.
I didn't expect anything,
Elias said. That is what troubles the others, Ceres replied. She explained that the wider council was already debating humanity, not because of weapons or fleets, but because of behavior. Humans did not fit existing models. They broke patterns. When my cub returned to me, Ceres said, she spoke of warmth. Of safety, of food given freely.
Elias shifted uncomfortably. It was just a meal.
Ceres leaned forward slightly. In our history, entire alliances have formed over less. She told him of worlds that had failed similar tests. Species that ignored the cub. Species that reported it as a threat. Species that demanded compensation. Those worlds are distant now, she said carefully. Elias swallowed. So what do you want from me? Saris's gaze softened. Nothing. He blinked. Nothing? You have already given what was asked, she said, without knowing. She stood and moved toward the door, then paused.
Others will come, she said.
They will watch your people. They will provoke small moments, not with force, with need. To see how we respond, Elias said. Yes. She turned to face him fully. Be yourselves. And then she was gone. That evening, the colony gathered in quiet groups, talking in low voices. News had spread, though details were unclear. Some were afraid. Some were proud. Some were angry that one man's kindness might change their future. Elias stayed inside, listening to the hum of distant ships. In the days that followed, small things began to happen. A damaged alien freighter requested repair help instead of demanding docking priority. A trader offered goods without fixed prices, waiting to see how humans would respond. A strange, frightened creature appeared near the water processors, and a human technician wrapped it in a blanket before calling anyone else. Every moment was watched. Elias did not see the observers, but he felt them. Late one night, his wrist unit chimed again. A simple message appeared. She remembers you. No signature. No explanation. Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He had fed a hungry child. Now the galaxy was leaning closer, trying to understand what kind of people humans really were. And for the first time, humanity was being judged not by what it could destroy, but by what it chose to protect. Colony 9 became a quiet place in a new way. Not silent, not empty, but careful. Every action felt heavier, like it mattered more than before. People still went to work, still argued, still laughed, but behind it all was the feeling of being seen. Elias Ward felt it most of all. He returned to his maintenance duties after 2 days, climbing the outer sensor tower just after dawn. From that height, the colony looked small and fragile, a scatter of metal and light on an empty world. Beyond it stretched open land and sky, and beyond that, the attention of the galaxy. His wrist unit buzzed again, not an official message this time, just a system ping. Unidentified presence detected. Passive observation only. Elias closed his eyes briefly. Of course, he muttered. He finished his work and climbed down, boots hitting the ground with a dull thud. At the base of the tower stood 2 figures that did not belong. They were alien, but not like Ceres and her cub. These were tall and narrow, their bodies wrapped in layered robes that shifted color as they moved. Their faces were hidden behind smooth masks that reflected the world like mirrors. They did not approach him. They waited. Elias stopped a few meters away. "Can I help you?" the translator activated after a moment. "We are here to observe," one of them said. The voice was calm, without emotion. "Yeah," Elias replied. "That's been happening a lot lately." The second figure tilted its head. "You are the feeder." Elias stiffened.
I'm a maintenance worker.
"You are both," the first said.
We wish to understand the difference. Elias looked past them. People nearby were pretending not to stare, but everyone was listening.
You want to understand humans, Elias said slowly. Then maybe don't talk like we're a story problem. The figures were silent for a long moment.
"That response is noted," the first said. They turned and walked away, robes rippling, leaving Elias standing there with his heart racing. That night, the power grid flickered. It was minor, barely noticeable, automatic systems corrected it within seconds. Still, Elias was called in. He followed the signal to a junction near the colony's edge. When he arrived, he saw the cause. A small alien creature sat curled beside the conduit. It was no larger than a human dog, its skin pale and thin, its breathing fast and shallow. One limb was trapped beneath a loose panel, likely crushed during installation years ago.
Elias crouched slowly. "Hey," he said softly, though he doubted it understood.
The creature flinched but did not flee. Its eyes were wide with fear. Elias checked the area. No alarms, no warnings, no observers that he could see. But he knew they were there. He could have called security. That was the correct action. That was the safe action. Instead, he lifted the panel carefully and freed the creature's limb. He tore a strip from his jacket and wrapped it gently, just enough to support it. The creature made a low sound and leaned into his hand. Elias exhaled shakily. "You're gonna get me in trouble," he whispered. He escorted the creature to the medical wing, staying with it until xenobiology staff arrived. He answered questions honestly. He did not exaggerate. He did not defend himself. When it was over, one of the doctors looked at him with something close to awe. "You know," she said quietly, "there were observers in orbit the whole time." Elias nodded. "I figured." The next day, trade ships arrived early. They did not dock immediately. They waited. They requested permission instead of declaring intent. That alone caused confusion. When permission was granted, their crews behaved differently. They asked questions. They watched humans interact with each other. They noted who shared tools, who helped without being asked, who stopped to explain things instead of walking away. Some humans felt uncomfortable. Some felt proud. Some felt angry. "We're not pets in a cage," one colonist shouted during a public meeting. "They don't get to judge us." "And what if they already are?" someone else replied. Elias stayed silent, sitting in the back. That evening, Saris returned. This time, she came openly. A formal shuttle landed outside the colony perimeter, visible to everyone. No stealth. No shadows. Elias was summoned, not ordered. He walked to the landing zone with slow steps, feeling every eye on him. Sarah stepped down from the shuttle, her presence calm and steady as ever. Her cub walked beside her, more confident now, head held higher. The cub saw Elias and stopped. Her eyes lit up. She ran forward and hugged his leg without hesitation. Elias froze, then awkwardly placed a hand on her shoulder. Laughter rippled through the watching humans, breaking some of the tension.
Sarah's watched closely. "She remembers," Sarah said. "I remember too," Elias replied quietly. They walked together through the colony.
Saris asked questions, simple ones. Why do humans build personal homes instead of communal dens? Why do humans share food even when supplies are limited? Why do humans comfort strangers? Elias answered as best he could. "We're not special," he said at one point. "We just
"Don't like seeing people hurt, Sarah. Stop walking."
That sentence," she said slowly, "has no equivalent in many languages." They reached Elias's home. He hesitated, then opened the door. Inside, Saris looked around again, but this time her gaze lingered on small details. A repaired chair, a patched wall, the cupboard where the bowl had been. "You live simply," she said. "Most of us do," Elias replied. Saris sat. The cub sat beside her, swinging her legs. "The council is divided," Saris said. "Some believe humans are unpredictable and therefore dangerous. Others believe you are rare." "Which are you?" Elias asked. Saris met his eyes. "I believe you are honest." She explained that another test had been proposed. Not a trap, a situation. A supply vessel from a minor species had failed near human space. The crew was safe, but stranded. The question was not whether humans could help, but whether they would help without gaining advantage. They are watching your response, Ceres said.
Elias frowned. Why not just ask for help? Because the answer matters more when it is chosen freely, she replied.
The next morning, the distress signal was made public. Colony 9 responded immediately. Ships were prepared, supplies loaded. Volunteers stepped forward without hesitation. Not because they were told to, but because someone needed help. Elias watched from the platform as the rescue vessel departed. High above, alien ships adjusted their orbits. They were no longer just observing. They were learning. Later that night, Elias stood outside his home, looking up at the stars. The cub stood beside him, holding his hand. "Why do they look at you so much?" she asked through the translator, her voice clearer now. Elias smiled faintly. "Because I opened my door." She nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Far away, across light years of space, records were being updated. Humanity was no longer listed as unknown. It was listed as something far more unsettling. Kind. The rescue ship returned 3 days later. It came back slower than it had left, its engines humming low as it crossed into Colony 9's airspace. People gathered near the landing zone not because they were told to, but because they wanted to see. They wanted to know if what they had done mattered. The ship touched down smoothly. The hatch opened. A group of aliens stepped out first. They were smaller than humans, with long arms and narrow faces, their skin a pale gold. They looked tired, but unharmed. Behind them came human crew members, smiling, talking softly, offering water and blankets.
There was no cheering.
No speeches. Just relief.
Elias stood at the edge of the crowd, hands in his jacket pockets. He watched as medics guided the rescued crew away.
He noticed the way the aliens looked at the humans, not with fear, but with something closer to disbelief. High above, unseen but very present, the observers adjusted their focus. The next change came quietly. Trade agreements that had been delayed for months were suddenly approved. Requests came in from neighboring systems, polite and careful. Some asked for human advisors. Others asked simple questions. Why did humans help without demand? Why did humans not record favors as debt? Why did humans allow individuals to choose kindness instead of enforcing it? Colony leaders struggled to answer. There was no single rule, no written law. It was just how humans were, or at least, how they tried to be. Not everyone was happy. Some colonists complained that humanity was being watched too closely, that every mistake would now mean more, that kindness was becoming a performance.
"We can't live like this," one man argued in a public forum. "We're not saints."
Elias listened from the back again.
"We're not,"
A woman replied.
"but we don't have to be cruel either." The debate spread beyond Colony 9.
Other human settlements reported similar attention. Small tests, minor requests, strangers watching how humans treated their own. Some humans failed those moments, others passed. The observers did not expect perfection. They expected honesty. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the colony in warm light, Elias received another message. "Ceres would like to speak with you." He did not hesitate. They met outside, near the edge of the settlement where the land opened wide. Ceres stood waiting, her posture relaxed. Her cub sat on a nearby rock, humming softly to herself.
You look tired, Sarah said.
"So do you," Elias replied. She considered that. Change is,
demanding.
They walked together, slow and unhurried.
The council has reached a point of decision, Sarah said. Not a final one, but a direction. Elias did not interrupt. Many fear humanity, she continued. Not because you are violent, but because you are inconsistent.
You do not always choose the same path. You argue.
You disagree. You help, even when it costs you.
That doesn't sound like a bad thing, Elias said.
It is not, Saris replied. But it is difficult to control. They stopped at a small hill overlooking the colony. Some wish to limit contact, she said, to keep you contained, predictable.
And the others?
Elias asked. Saris looked down at her cub, who was stacking small stones with great focus. The others believe humanity should be trusted, she said, not because you are flawless, but because you choose to care, even when no one is watching. Elias felt a tightness in his throat. That sounds like a lot of pressure. Saris nodded. It is. That night, an incident occurred. A supply drone malfunctioned near the edge of the colony, crashing into an unmapped ravine. Inside were medical units meant for another world. The terrain was unstable. Recovery would be difficult and dangerous. The drone was not human property. The official recommendation was to mark the loss and move on. Elias heard about it over shared comms. He listened as voices debated cost, risk, and responsibility. Then someone said, those supplies were meant for children. That was enough. A volunteer team formed within minutes. They worked slowly, carefully, lowering lines, stabilizing ground, passing equipment by hand. No one forced them to stay. No one punished those who left. They recovered every crate. The observers watched the entire time. Not from orbit, from the ravine's edge. They did not help. They did not interfere. They simply recorded. When the last crate was lifted out, one of the observers stepped forward. It removed its mask. Its face was strange, layered with soft ridges and dark eyes that reflected light differently. It looked at the humans, muddy and exhausted, and bowed its head. This action was unnecessary, it said. A human woman wiped her hands on her pants.
Yeah, she replied.
But it was right. The observer was silent for a long time. Later, far away, the council convened again. They reviewed data, recordings, patterns, not just of humans helping aliens, but humans helping each other. Humans arguing, making mistakes, apologizing, trying again. One voice spoke louder than the others.
They are not gentle, it said. They are not peaceful by nature.
But they restrain themselves.
And when they fail, they grieve. That mattered. Back on Colony 9, Elias sat on his porch as night settled in. The cub sat beside him, legs dangling. Why do you do it? She asked suddenly.
Do what? Elias replied. Help, she said.
Even when it is hard. He thought about it. Because someday, he said slowly, I might need help too, and I hope someone opens their door. She nodded, satisfied. The sky above shimmered as ships adjusted position. Not retreating, not advancing, staying. Saris joined them, quietly. The council will make an announcement soon, she said. Your species will be given a choice.
What kind of choice?
Elias asked. To remain observed, she said, or to become involved. Elias laughed softly. Feels like we already are.
Ceres smiled. This time there was warmth in it.
Yes, she said. You are. And across the stars a truth settled into the minds of many worlds. Humans were not dangerous because they were strong. They were dangerous because they cared. And they were not afraid to show it. The announcement came at dawn, not with alarms or flashing lights, but with a calm message sent to every screen, every wrist unit, every shared space on Colony 9. People stopped what they were doing and listened. It was not a demand. It was an invitation. Elias Ward stood outside his home, the cool morning air brushing his face as the message played. He listened carefully, even though he already knew what was coming. Saris had warned him. The Council of Observers spoke with one voice, translated clearly into human language. Humanity had been watched. Humanity had been tested, not with war, not with force, but with moments. Small ones, quiet ones. And now, the Council offered a choice. Humans could remain under observation, protected but distant, studied as a curiosity that might one day become a problem. Or humans could step forward, not as subjects, but as participants, not above others, not below, but among. The message ended with a simple statement. We do not ask for your strength. We ask for your nature. Silence followed. Across the colony, reactions came in waves. Some people felt pride rise in their chests. Others felt fear tighten their stomachs. A few felt anger. Elias felt tired. He walked toward the central gathering space, where people were already forming groups. Debate sparked quickly. Voices rose and fell.
"This is too fast," one man said. "We barely know them."
They barely knew us, a woman replied. And still they trusted us. We'll lose our independence. We'll gain responsibility. Elias stayed on the edge, listening. He was not a leader. He had never wanted to be. He had just opened his door. Saris arrived quietly. Her presence felt before it was seen. Her cub walked beside her, holding something small and round in her hands. She spotted Elias and smiled. "They are struggling," Saris said softly. "We always do," Elias replied.
"Then we figure it out."
"Not all species argue like this," Saris said. Elias glanced at the crowd. "That's because we care enough to disagree." Saris considered that. "Yes," she said. "That is what frightens some of us." The council requested a single human voice to answer. Not a ruler, not a military commander. Someone chosen by the people. The colony leaders hesitated. Committees formed. Buzzed with colony. Names were suggested. Then, slowly, inevitably, eyes turned toward Elias. He noticed it too late.
No, he said immediately.
"Absolutely not. You started this," someone said. "I fed a kid," Elias snapped.
"That's exactly why," another voice replied. "You didn't mean to." Elias looked at Saris, almost accusingly. She raised her hand slightly. "I did not suggest you. You didn't stop it either," he muttered. Saris's expression softened. "Because they are right." Hours passed. Arguments continued. Eventually, a decision settled in. Not official, not unanimous, but clear enough. Elias Ward would speak. He stood before a simple recording unit later that day. No grand stage, no audience. Just him, a camera, and the knowledge that countless eyes across the stars would be watching. He rubbed his face and sighed. "Okay," he said. "Let's get this over with." He did not read from a script. He did not polish his words. He spoke plainly. "My name is Elias Ward," he began. "I'm not important. I fix things. I live alone. I don't represent all humans." He paused, thinking.
"But I guess I represent some of us," he continued. "The ones who answer doors."
The ones who help first and think later. The ones who mess up, but try again.
He spoke about fear, about mistakes.
About how humans argued because they cared about outcomes. "We're not gentle," he said. "We can be cruel. We can be cruel. We can be selfish. History proves that."
He swallowed. "But when we see someone hungry, lost, or hurting,
Most of us don't ask who they are first. We ask what they need.
He looked straight into the camera.
If you're asking whether we'll change when things get hard, he said, the answer is yes.
We always do. He let out a small breath. But if you're asking whether we'll stop caring, that's harder. Because that part isn't a rule. It's a habit. The recording ended. Across space, the council watched in silence. The decision did not come immediately. Days passed. Trade continued. Life went on, tense but steady. People waited. Then, one evening, the sky changed. Ships appeared in orbit, not in threatening formations, but in patterns meant to be seen. Lights pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Sarah stood beside Elias as the message arrived. "The Council has chosen," she said. The message was brief. Humanity would be welcomed into shared space. Slowly, carefully.
With guidance and trust on both sides. There would be no special status.
No protection from consequences. No shielding from mistakes. "Just connection!" people cried. People laughed. Some stood in stunned silence. Elias closed his eyes. "What happens now?" he asked. Saris smiled. "Now you learn that kindness has weight." In the weeks that followed, humans began to travel not as visitors, but as partners. Advisors were requested, mediators, engineers, teachers, not because humans were smarter, because humans listened. Elias refused every offer to leave Colony 9. He stayed where he was, fixing towers, cooking simple meals, living his quiet life. The cub visited often. She learned words quickly now. She laughed easily. One night as they sat on the porch again, she looked up at him. "You changed everything," she said.
Elias shook his head. No.
She frowned. "Small things are how it starts," she said seriously. Far away, records were updated again. Humanity was no longer marked as a risk. It was marked as a variable. Unpredictable. Difficult. Valuable. And somewhere in the endless dark between stars, a simple truth spread from world to world. If you knocked on a human door hungry, there was a chance, just a chance, that it would open. And that was enough to change the galaxy.